City of Atascadero, and I, your mayor, will be honored to lead you in a pledge to the flag. Please stand as able.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borbo,
Here.
Councilmember Daris,
Here.
Councilmember Newsom,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Funk,
Here.
Mayor Moreno,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. Well, if you're attending in person, you're listening here on Zoom, or any of the myriad of ways that you can participate in our Atascadero City Council meeting, we welcome you this evening. If you would like to speak by phone, maybe you're listening on the radio or watching on Channel 20, you can participate by calling the following phone number, area code 669-900-6833. Once again, that is 669-900-6833. When you call in, you'll be asked for a meeting ID, and that number is 889-2347-9018. Once again, 889-2347-9018. And that is to speak during community forum or at public comment on any of the items that are on our agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Also move.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Borbo, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Funk. We will waive the reading in full of all ordinances appearing on the agenda, and the titles of the ordinances will be read aloud by the city clerk at the first reading, after the motion, and before the city council votes. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Daris,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom, Mayor Pro Tem Funk, yes, Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes unanimously 5-0.
Thank you. We're on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar contains items that are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff and can be voted in one motion, and this unless there is a member of the public or a member of council wishing to pull an item for further discussion. So I will look to my council to see if there is anyone wishing to pull anything. No. Any members of the public wishing to pull or speak to an item on the consent calendar? If you're in Zoom, you could raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone on the phone. Luke, is that correct? All right. With that, I will ask for a motion on the consent calendar.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Borbo, second by Mayor Pro Tem Funk. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Funk, yes, Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Funk,
That's quite all right.
Mayor Moreno,
Yes, ma'am.
motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to our updates from the city manager, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I hope you're enjoying the wet weather. It so far has treated our community well. So it's watering our lawns and recharging our basin, and that's good. But the community is weathering well. But it is a good time to get your sandbags filled. So this is still expected to be a wet winter. We've been fortunate so far. Sand is available free of charge at Fire Station Number 1 at 6005 Lewis Avenue and at the Public Works Yard at 8005 Garbata Road. Bring your own shovel and sandbags. We have a lot of sand. So if you're ready to do that, please do so. Let me talk with a break in the storm. This is a great opportunity to clean drains and culverts and see how your property has weathered the storm. And we've read that there were some challenges last year with properties that need to make sure they take care of themselves. And so I want to be really clear what you can do right now. You can remove trash and other potential obstructions from creeks, ditches, and other drainage ways on your property. You can clear and remove down trees and limbs. You can check and clear any pipes or drain inlets under driveways or elsewhere on your property. If you're on a creek or embankment, keep riparian areas vegetated to prevent bank and soil erosion. And if you're on a creek, monitor conditions throughout the winter and take action. Now, I do want to share with the council at the meeting, we have finished and have sent or are sending tomorrow or the next day a letter to all property owners, residential property owners along our creeks. There's a letter for property owners along a creek that's private, and there's a letter for property owners along a creek that's the reservation adjacent, city reservation. Those both have specific information about what they should be doing in their situation and explains what the city does. And I've explained that before, but I'll do it again. In storm events, the city is focused on protecting public property to make sure it is passable and functioning. So our drains, so they don't back up and cause further damage. Our bridges, that we don't have to close them so we can have our community connected. We're looking at major roadways to make sure they're not flooding so emergency vehicles can get through them. So that's our priority in a storm event. And so I just wanted to share that. But flooding and down limbs, or trees in the street can be reported as well. We want to hear from people if they're blocking public rights of way by calling Public Works or the police department at the police business number 461-5051. Next, I wanted to talk about this is one of your goals. We'll talk more about that later, but the Centennial Plaza RFQ has been released. So we're really excited about this. It turned out great. You can see a picture of the property on your slide and a idea, but I hope it doesn't look glass like that. But the concept of a building and a building with a little walkway through it, that's would be the Centennial Plaza walkway. But the idea being that the council had a goal to incentivize development of vacant lots adjacent to the sunken gardens with restaurant and retail spaces. And this is really a neat concept the council came up with to show how property owners along the sunken gardens could utilize their property and put this one into place. So the vacant site is in the downtown commercial zone on East Mall, directly adjacent to City Hall. It's a beautiful property, a premier property on the sunken gardens and a very short distance from Atascadero Creek. The vacant lots span an area between a city-owned public parking lot, East Mall Avenue, and a pathway that parallels through the creek, which the concept is showing how the building can wrap around that. The primary objective for the project is to ensure timely, vibrant development of these specified vacant parcels within our historic downtown and the Plaza pedestrian paseo. We are looking for applicants that will embrace the unique location, respect adjacent historic features, and support increased downtown synergy in the future. So this is a really good opportunity. On the next slide, here's some details about the RFQ. It's due March 1st. You can scan that QR code to actually see it. We are sending it out to different realtor exchanges and business groups, but you can check that out or go to atascadero.org/bids-RFPs. Responses to the RFQ are due March 1st. So we're basically soliciting anyone that may have an interest. The RFQ has a lighter request for information, just initial concepts, ideas about the team, ability to do the project. Staff will review those, critically score them, and invite a few smaller number of applicants to actually submit a proposal. And those proposals will be required to have a site plan, rendering, pro forma, those kind of things, a little more specific. Next, roadwork continues in the downtown. We are making lots of progress, and we've been doing this for a while. Weather makes it a bit challenging, but over the next 2 weeks, the downtown pavement project will continue with storm drain and curb ramp construction on Palma Avenue between Rosario and Traffic Way, and access to residences remain open. The gas company will continue to work on Traffic Way from Palma Avenue to the Colony Park Community Center. There'll be intermittent parking restrictions. Broadband for this week and next week. Utility work continues on Traffic Way from Palma to the Colony Park Community Center. Parking will be restricted intermittently as well during work. We'll continue to work closely with the contractors on the construction schedule through downtown and the business area, and we'll notify affected businesses as we can. We definitely are making progress. You can see it. There's a good bit of work to do. I think we're probably a couple months, short months, March, something like that maybe. We'll see. We're getting there. Nick's smiling. Anyway, so we're making progress. Okay, next slide. Dads, pay attention, or moms, but more so the father-daughter sweetheart dance. Don't be that dad that did not get your ticket. I've had calls from those dads over the years. I've had friends in my friends groups that I'm showing pictures of Gracie and I with at the father-daughter dance that didn't get to go. We are sold out for Friday evening, February 2nd. So Saturday evening, February 3rd still has a few tickets available. So please, this is a great evening. Recreation does a tremendous job transforming the pavilion into a magic spot for dads and daughters. Tickets are available to purchase at the Colony Park Community Center. So you need to come in person. Tickets are not available at the door. So please purchase your tickets from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And you can go on our website to see events or go to visit atascadero.com. I have one last thing. The F14 road report is coming in mail. We got ours today at home. This is a tremendous report. I want to point it out to the community. We actually reformatted it a bit with very clear information. F14 is our half-cent sales tax, and all the proceeds are used to pave neighborhood roads. We've made tremendous progress over the last several years. 52 center line miles paved, 36% of all city maintained roads, 80 neighborhood road segments have been repaired, 17.2 million in neighborhood road repairs. And so this half-cent sales tax has been remarkable in transforming our neighborhoods in our community and paving our roads. It is something the council will need to consider renewing at a future meeting date, but I really encourage residents to see, this is one of those things where no one likes a tax, but when you see the value of this half cent being poured into our neighborhoods, helping ease our commutes, be kind to our cars, making our streets safer. It's just a tremendous program that the voters approve. So I'm really appreciate if you take a look at this brochure and see how this tax has improved your neighborhood and who's next to get paved. That's always the big question. That concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Any members of council have questions? Not seeing any questions. Wonderful. Thank you for that. We're moving on to community forum. This is the portion of our meeting that is reserved for anyone who would like to speak to the council on something that is not on our agenda this evening, but over which the council has jurisdiction. We give speakers up to 3 minutes, and we ask that you state your name for the record. We also allow up to 30 minutes for community forum. So anybody wishing to speak, go ahead and come forward to the podium.
Good evening, Council. Jeff Oslin, resident here of our wonderful city. A couple quick things. To our city manager RFQ, I think is what you referred to. Some of us might not know what that is, so maybe that can be followed up with, please. The other one is waste management and IWMA. I just learned something recently, and of course, I didn't learn it from IWMA and I didn't learn it from waste management. So I still think we're lacking education in this community. My understanding is that wood and wood scraps are actually considered green waste, whether it's a 2x4 or plywood, as long as it does not have. So you thought I had silenced my phone. Sorry about that. I also thought, I just found that out recently, as long as it's clean wood, not pressure treated. And I was also told it may or may not, and we need clarification on this matter, if it has like nails in it, because apparently they grind it in a big grinder and they still magnet it with a magnet and it takes out the metal. So if that's correct, we should be doing better education so things actually go in green waste and not in trash. Outside of that, once again, as a resident over on the west side of Del Rio, I will tell you that road patch is beautiful, and I appreciate the fact I don't have to four-wheel drive home any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oslin. Anyone else wishing to speak? I don't see anyone in chambers, and I'm not seeing any hands raised or anyone on the phone. So we'll go ahead and close community forum and bring that back to council. So let's see. IWMA and waste management, perhaps Charles had some feedback you could give to the IWMA, or is there a
Sure.
place that
I'm
exists
not a
that we are
complete
to start
expert, but I
looking?
can tell you that, yeah, you can put wood in the green waste, but it can't be painted, can't be treated. And, nails and screws, they will sort out, but they prefer you not do that. And I don't know about plywood because it depends on the kind of glue that's used to put the plywood together. The basic thing is the wood products are turned into wood chips that are going to be spread on landscaping. So they don't, if they have any kind of contaminant, it's not a good thing for the landscape. It decreases any value that the chips might have.
I know sometimes with recycling, depending on how old your bin is and how worn it is, but a lot of them will have the stickers on them that's showing, like for recycling, what goes in or what doesn't go in. And that would be a good idea on green waste. RFP is, I think, request for a quote, correct? Or request for
Qualifications.
Qualifications.
So
Sorry,
basically,
yes,
it's kind of a
qualification.
semifinal. We ask
Yeah.
people, if you're interested, to send whatever you have to show us that you should be welcome to actually submit a concept or proposal.
So request for, so in RFP, RFQ, the difference between the two is?
RFQ is usually a more initial step where you say, hey, anyone interested in this, just tell us how you'd be qualified to do the project. Based on that pre-submittal, if you will, we then invite people to submit an actual proposal.
Which is the RFP.
That's correct.
Request for proposal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we always say, we always do like RFP first before RFQ. We always say it that way, but it really should be RFQ, RFP. Anyway, all right. Thank you very much for that. We are moving on to, we have no public hearings tonight. We just have one management report, and that's an update on our council goals and actions. And I think, did our city manager want to start out on that one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to, this is a neat moment to step back, and you work so hard every other year to set the key priorities for the city. And you spend a whole day and a half basically doing that. And so from that, then action plans are crafted and a whole bunch of work goes into this. It's really a best practice to every year look back and see how you're doing. And so the staff pulled together a report for you here. Let me just share, for having been here 6 of these months, it's incredibly amount of work the staff is doing. And it's just been an honor to work alongside such a hardworking professional group of people. And so I think we have great pride in presenting this report to you this evening. It is remarkable to see the progress we're making as we try to enhance quality of life in our community and make this an even better place. So Deputy City Manager Christensen pulled this report together and monitors our progress in all these reports. I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you. Thank you, Council, for this opportunity. I kind of jumped ahead a little bit as Jim sort of went into the background. And just really for the public, this is a big, the action plan and what we talk about tonight really is part of, it starts with that workshop and you guys setting your strategic plans and those goals. Then we move that into sort of the budgeting process and the action plan. And so that is what, from that strategic workshop, is where we get this action plan, which then tells us the work we'll do for the next couple of years, which guides our budget. So now we'll talk about some of the work that we'll first of all go over the strategic priorities and sort of what those goals were. So for those who haven't seen the report or haven't been here during the budget process, the council came up with 3 strategic priorities for the next 2 fiscal years, those being economic and community vibrancy, fiscal and infrastructure efficiency and sustainability, and then ensuring public safety and providing exceptional city services. These 3 goals really were part of the 3 goals that had been set the previous budget cycle and kind of rolled into, we've been on such a roll in hitting those and moving those forward that during that strategic planning workshop, council said, let's continue to move those forward. The momentum that's been going on and just the good work that's being done has been so impressive. Let's continue forward. So that's where these 3 came from. And then from those, we sort of drilled down to some key focus areas, which are under our first strategic priority. You have downtown viability, activation of underutilized sites and nodes, our business support and jobs housing balance, and then neighborhood compatibility and wellness. And so while some of these, they've all been sort of given titles, as you're looking through the action plan, or if someone wants to go back and look through, you'll sort of see that some of the work plan items kind of fall under a lot of those, because while we did try to separate that, these hit on a lot more than just one goal. Not everything is one goal related. So like, for example, under business support and jobs housing balance, that goes under our economic development, that goes under our planning, that goes under public works, that goes on. So that sort of falls under a lot more than just economic and community vibrancy. That also touches on fiscal and infrastructure efficiency. It also touches on ensuring public safety and providing. So I'm going to try as I go through this report just to highlight key actions or, key things that we've completed or that continue to be ongoing just in those categories, but know that they will touch in the other priorities. So then we have fiscal and infrastructure efficiency and sustainability, again, just making sure we continue to do what we can with the dollars that we have and that we're making sure we have the most impact. So we've been looking at our asset management, replacement and modernization of the assets that we do have. We've talked about financial strategies and how, we continue to work with what we have and increase that. And then also transparency and accountability in everything that we do. And then that all leads into our third one, which is the ensuring public safety and providing exceptional city services. And that's where the focus is on staff. So making sure that we have the right staff and the resources to get done these priorities and to meet these goals, that we are addressing issues and concerns and resources for our unhoused population. And then also that we continue to ensure that we have a flourishing community. So into that is where we got into that action plan. And so on the first one, the economic and community vibrancy, just wanted to touch on some big ones. Downtown infrastructure enhancement project that we lovingly called DEEP. That is in its final construction documents. And our goal is right now to have that bid released in April. So that's really exciting. We are, and is in part of that, starting to work on, what did we call it? The targeted campaign for We Are Open for Business. So that's something that we're starting to work on now, is sort of build out what that campaign is going to look like, how we're going to keep that up with the business community, and then letting residents and visitors know that these businesses remain open. So we're moving that forward. Hopefully, we're going to see a lot more momentum on that very soon. And this has been years in the making. So this is really exciting that we've gotten this far. We did complete the downtown paving project. We got that done within the timeframe that we said, prior to the holidays, prior to the Black Friday events and all of that. So all of that, we were able to get that construction done. We've finished up with a lot of the striping and paving. And so on those roads that we are working, we've gotten that project complete. And I think we did it. We had a really good community engagement process where we sent out weekly updates to businesses. We continue to, because there is still ongoing work with Astound Broadband and with the gas company and some other stuff that's still being done there. So we continue to do updated emails to residents and businesses. We post weekly updates on our website. We have banners in strategic locations in downtown that has a flyer that gets updated in that weekly. So we continue just in process of what might be overkill, but to make sure that people have continued availability to that information and to know what's coming forward. We're making sure that they have access to information, whether it be through the city manager's office, through Public Works, through social media, whatever it is that we need to, that we're getting that information out. And we're using that as a way to help guide us in this We Are Open for Business campaign. So learning from what works, what doesn't work, and getting to know more about how businesses really get that information, residents and visitors, so that we have a better and more targeted campaign moving forward. We've also been doing a lot more creative supportive development and some of the larger developments in those commercial nodes, which means that both Del Rio and Dove Creek are moving through their planning documents, that those developments are continuing to move forward, and that they're making their way through planning commission. Council will start to see more of that. So that's pretty exciting too, that some of these bigger developments in town that we've been waiting on, staff has been really proactive in working and moving those forward. Broadband infrastructure, that was a big priority of councils. And with that, we've done the contract with Astound for moving broadband infrastructure to city facilities, so that's a lot of the construction that's been out happening along Traffic Way, happening here along Lewis. And with bringing that in and starting to tie in our facilities, that will then mean that those reaching outwards will now also be able to access this enhanced infrastructure. So that's great. And then moving that forward, and along with that, we've got our digital infrastructure plan moving forward, so that their digital inclusion, plan moving forward, so that we're making sure that everyone in the community has this level of access. And so what that looks like and how we move that plan and work with these providers to get that access out. We are in the process of drafts on like dig once policies and micro trenching policies. Council approved a 0 fee for putting in the infrastructure. And so just all of these processes that over the last year have really moved this forward and gotten us to this point. Council approved the restaurant loan program, and with that, we're now starting to see restaurants come forward looking for more information, submitting applications, trying to find out more of that information. So that's really great. Lorelei who's our economic development, Deputy Director of Economic and Community Development. So she's starting to get a lot of phone calls, partnering, hearing from a lot more restaurants who are interested. What does that mean? How can I take advantage of that and bring my restaurant to Atascadero? So we'll start to hear a lot more about that too. A lot more restaurants interested in making their way to Atascadero. And then we have ongoing collaboration with our downtown businesses to help enhance events. There were We launched that First Friday campaign. We learned during the First Friday campaign what did work, what didn't work, so that moving into this year, we can more tailor that to those events that saw more uptick for for businesses and restaurants in our downtown, so we can focus more energies there. We've been utilizing the Plaza on El Camino more. So that's enhancing, bringing more people downtown, and then, working with the businesses to be part of that as well, and really tying them in more with our events so that they are more engaged and that they are seeing the flow of visitors into their restaurants and businesses as well. And then what's really exciting is our general plan process is more than halfway complete. And so we are moving that forward. We have another big outreach event, and then we'll start to move into the CEQA process. And then we will be bringing that back to you guys before the end of the year, to Planning Commission and to the City Council before the end of the year, to get that approved and in place. So that's really exciting. That was a long time coming, and the planning department, community development department has really been the active engagement of the community, of businesses, of residents, visitors, has been tremendous in guiding that process forward. And then also part of that has been the active economic development efforts that staff and council have collaborated on, which has really boosted what we're seeing coming into Atascadero or expressing interest in coming to Atascadero. A lot of that has been at looking at how we, increase the use of underutilized areas, how we work regionally to attract restaurants and businesses to Atascadero. So working with regional organizations to do that, and then really just being more active in some not just underutilized but areas where we could see more development, in being more proactive in reaching out to those developers or those property owners, and having those active conversations. Excuse me. And I think in a lot of that is where we've started to see more momentum. We're seeing more businesses. I think a plug, Mr. Q's open now, and, just moving some of these, businesses and bringing them down here, and then the events, although that comes up a little later, but, just having the events and how that is spurring a lot of that as well. Our next is, I skipped ahead, is fiscal and infrastructure efficiency and sustainability. And a lot of that ties into how we're doing what we're doing, and really big on that, which is one of these ones that sort of fall in all three, is the rebuild of Fire Station 1 and upgrades to the police department and Fire Station 2. And we had talked a lot last year, and a lot of our action plan sort of talks about, looking at the armory project and really trying to, look at creating one public safety facility. And staff really worked with the state, worked together on really looking at the feasibility of that. And and after lots of conversations with the state, having the state out, going and looking at other potential sites, and just all of sort of the hoops that you would have to jump through with the state, and how long it would take to actually get something moving forward in trying to do some type of property exchange or whatnot with the state to utilize the armory project, was something that would not get us to our goals of seeing a new fire station in the next several years. And so, staff really re-looked at that situation and came up with, I think, what will wind up being a better solution to what we needed, which would be to rebuild Fire Station 1 on its current property, and to do upgrades to both the police station and the fire station, which will get us what we were talking about in needing with a joint facility, but without having to sort of jump through hoops and delay that process. And so we've moved that forward. You'll remember several months ago, you approved a contract with Vanner, who is who's helping us with moving that project forward and doing some concept designs and really working through that. We have a great staff team that includes almost everybody, a representative from almost every department. And so that's where we're at with that. And then also with, because we all like each other here, we also have a essentialism task force that has members from all departments as well, who are really looking at ways that we are streamlining how we are working and what we are doing, and how are we best utilizing our time, our processes, our procedures. And so they are sort of undertaking that. We had originally talked about looking at an outside consultant, and that was really something that we could do internally that would save the city that level of money for hiring a consultant, but then actually I think give staff more buy-in to the process, and then sort of alleviate some of those fears when you talk about, oh well, is this essential? Well, then are you talking about my job? No, we're talking about how do we make all of us better? How do we make the city better? And so bringing that in-house is really spurring that along. And then we've also been our director of community services and promotions has really been working with the Friends of the Charles Paddock Zoo. They've done a big sort of not overhaul, but they've really sort of started looking at their group and how they partner with the city and really getting more involved. They're having strategic plannings. They're really starting to step up and, okay, what can we do? How are we supporting the zoo? How can we partner with the city to see some of this move forward? What does that mean in terms of capital projects? What does that mean in terms of zoo accreditation? Where is our viability, our feasibility? And so undertaking a lot of that. And so we'll see more of that as we come back to talk more about our action plan in April. And so this is sort of our first blush on it. And then probably should have talked about that earlier, but then we will all meet together in April at our workshop to, sort of dig into this a little bit more, affirm what we have here, look at other ways that we can be moving some of these ongoing things forward, or things that maybe don't sort of align with the priorities anymore, and how we transition the work or, staff resources. Another one I think is big on that is we've been looking at additional financing options. What are creative investment opportunities? How are ways, a big one was we onboarded a grants consultant. So they will be helping the city to identify grants, apply for grants, really find that money that's out there and how that can support the city in moving these goals forward. So we have that. We have, how do we continue, or how do we maximize our public-private partnerships? I'll talk about that a little bit more, but the potential with increasing recreational opportunities by, utilizing our partnership with the school district, or, those types of things. And in that. We're also talking about the, renewal of the Measure F14 that sunsets in 2026. So what does that look like? What do we need to do? Is that something we want to put forward on the ballot in 2024? So, looking at what that feasibility looks like, what those possibilities and strategies are. So bringing some of that forward to the council as well in the next month or so, probably. Pretty soon here. And then really, and some of the other bigger things, we did a total overhaul of the city website. That was part of that transparency accountability. So we did a total overhaul. It's a brand new website. We launched that in November, and it's on the next slide, but part of that is with the city branding. And we did a whole new city branding campaign, and that, ties in with the new look of the city website. It's the new look of our PowerPoints, of our letters that go out. We've implemented a community engagement program. I think I talked about it a little bit with the downtown paving project, but we'll be reinstituting Talk on the Blocks. We will be doing a quarterly newsletter for residents. We will really be increasing our communication and our engagement with the community, doing that trust building, doing more of that transparency, helping them to learn about things from the city that maybe they weren't aware of, or, fun facts, did you know, that type of stuff. Making access to financial data more user-friendly. We've changed a little bit of stuff on the budget. We're looking at more, in the next budgeting process. What are things that make, our residents, the public, when they dig into that, easier for them to understand? How are ways that we can let them in when we have finance committee meetings that make it easier for, the public to attend or to understand what we're talking about? We revamped, and everyone will notice, we revamped the roads report when that goes out, what that looks like when the Measure 20 reports go out, just how that's more digestible for the general public. And then again, just sort of tying that all in is just really utilizing technology for transparency and accountability, making sure records are available online, that, the forms are fillable through the website, that they have access through an email account to get to someone in the city or to call someone, or, that if they're looking for something, it, maybe is a 1 or 2 clicks away, or that they could call someone and we can literally guide them, click here and click here, and there you go, and you have the information. So a lot of that the council really helped with, they, in the budget, we have, a project where we can start scanning more of our documents, start getting more of that stuff online, start making stuff more available to the public. And then our last one, the last priority is ensuring public safety and providing exceptional city services. And as a staff member, I think this one is most exciting to me because there has been such a significant investment from the city council into staff. And I think I don't think, I know it's made a tremendous difference in coming to work every day, in getting excited about things that we're doing, in, just being out there and sharing and wanting to bring the public in and share with them about all of the exciting things that's happening in the city, and that all of the progress and all of these things that are happening is really in this. We are, continuing to hire and retain adequate level of staffing and key staff members. We have a new police chief. We have a new city attorney. We have staff members who are, there, and just literally in a couple of months, in a couple of weeks, just the amount of change in what we're able to accomplish in, having conversations, and that is really palatable. We'll have an 8th dispatcher that's been approved and that's in the next budget cycle. We have, what else keeps happening? We have another firefighter that had gotten approved. We're, utilizing grant opportunities to look for ways to hire, key public safety administration staff members, just all of these ways to really increase what we are doing and how we can get it done. The All for Atascadero All In event, that was a citywide event, that brought everybody in the city together for a day. Really, when we have so many offsite facilities, it's not often that we all see each other or we all get to know each other. And so for people to get to meet each other, to get to find out what do you do in, wastewater? What do you do over at the zoo? What does it mean to be a police officer or a firefighter? How do the things that you do, how do those partner with the things that I do? How do we all together sort of align with our new mission statement? How does that all tie in with this new rebranding campaign? And really just having those conversations and realizing that we are a cohesive team, that, we do have this culture of, creating a family here at the city, and what that really means for what we then give back out to the community. And then moving on to that one, one of your other key ones was addressing the unhoused population. And part of that was establishing the our team program, which is the
Outreach to underrepresented
outreach. Thank you.
residents.
Outreach to underrepresented. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Funk. And so really with their focus on providing services, on reaching out to those individuals and how we get them connected to services, how we, dig deeper into what isn't so much on the enforcement side as it is on, getting them into services, getting them out of the situation that they're in. And so, you know, in doing that and in campaigning and working together with the CAT team. And then part of that and just addressing that is the revision to the municipal code that we did with the updated camping ordinance, working through a shopping cart ordinance, really looking at other ways that we can address some of those community-wide cleanliness issues that come up as part of that. And then just moving over into the vibrant community, really our signature events and how those have been expanding, how those current ones continue, and that we continue to look for ways to offer future events. And then, you know, you had a presentation just recently about recreation and new recreation leagues and opportunities there. And then just continuing to work collaboratively with the school district on issues that are important to both agencies, and then also ways that we can expand what we're both doing here in the community. And with that, sorry, why is that going backwards? If you have any questions, we are all here today, all the exec team, willing to talk about any of the other items that were on the action plan that I didn't go over, or answer any other questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. I think it's always good as a team here in the city for us to go through that from time to time and see what we're doing, what we've accomplished. And it's really good for all of you to see what's been going on. So I can't wait for that quarterly newsletter to start going out. And so that the public is, not that the information isn't available, but more, like you said, more readily available and easily digestible. So looking forward to that. And I do want to let our community development department know that I met the owner of Jules Bryant today, and all she could do is rave about staff and what a great job everybody did and how friendly they were and how easy the process was. So love to hear that. All right. With that, any questions of staff on this report? Mayor Pro Tem Funk.
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, I want to thank Laura and all of the staff for the incredible amount of work that it goes into moving these things forward strategically and actually getting things done for our community. I wanted to check up on a couple of things and see on the restaurant loan program, have we actually loaned any dollars yet? I know we've got some nibbles and it's moving forward, but
I do believe there are some interested parties, but I don't think any loans have been completed this far.
okay, so it's getting close. And, you know, that, as I recall, the strategy there is to make it easier for people to develop commercial kitchens in our downtown areas so that we can have a more vibrant thing and make the whole downtown a more exciting place for people to come to, both for shopping and for eating and for enjoying other things. Okay. And then if you could address and this probably is a Phil question, but for Director Dunsmore, what's the status of the state's effort to allow a corner of the Ash front lawn at Atascadero State Hospital front lawn to be used for an affordable housing project developed by People's Self-Help Housing?
That is moving forward. It's called Paseo Paloma, between 50 and 60 units. We've seen some conceptual designs, and they actually have mentioned that they would like to approach the city for a deferment, a long-term loan of their development impact fees. And we're going to continue working with People's Self-Help Housing on the design. And we've seen so far, it's been a nice process. So they will actually eventually come to the city for construction permits as well, even though it's going to be on state property and it's a sort of a little bit detached from the city in a way, but it is moving forward.
Great. And while you're answering questions, could you also let us know what utilization is happening with those pre-designed accessory dwelling unit plans? That this was a city initiative to make it easier for people to develop ADUs, granny units or so forth on their own properties, to make that cheaper and easier to accomplish.
We've been issuing permits based on these stock plans, and so they're rolling off the shelves, actually happening. And in fact, 2023, although it didn't really involve a lot of the stock plans, is a record year for ADUs. 34 ADU permits were issued in the city of Atascadero. The year before that, it was about 10 less. The year before that, it was about 10 less. So it's increased dramatically each year as we've gotten the information out. So just the whole act of creating the draft plans and getting the information out there, changing some of the rules has really spurred on just a huge demand for ADUs. So it's become a big part of our housing.
Great, thank you. It's an exciting avenue to get affordable housing without waiting for, 5 years and layers of bureaucracy to make stuff happen. The bureaucracy elsewhere, not ours. So great, thank you. And then on the public safety staffing that we've been able to accomplish, I'm interested in how that's affected our patrol staffing as well as our dispatch and firefighting staff. So I don't know if I'm putting that up, and our police chief has just started, so he doesn't know the old thing. But the challenge was that we had so many shifts where there were only 3 officers per shift on patrol, and that stretched our force so thin.
Right, and this is definitely a challenge that we're not alone in. Recruitment and retention is a challenge basically for all the police departments nationwide. However, I can tell you over the last 4 to 5 months, we have seen, when I say we, I've talked to a lot of other different agencies, and we're starting to see a lot more applications. So that's very encouraging. Right now, we just closed out an application cycle in which we have 41 applicants for new recruit officers. We have a lateral that looks very promising that we think that we'll be able to hire. So we have a lot of good news, as far as that goes. As far as how it's been affecting our availability to staff, that does remain to be a challenge, because until we have those people with us, we will have those challenges. And then to another good thing that tends to compound the issue is, we have an opening for vacant commander spot. So we will be going through a promotional process, which means that we will be stressing the patrol levels a little bit more, but that'll be temporary until we get those positions filled, which again looks very promising. So I'm hopeful that through this cycle that we'll be able to fill those spots. So we'll keep my
Great. So is it fair to say that the public investment with D20 has enabled us to be competitive in attracting officers, although that's always a challenge right now, and that we are that our officers are seeing the support in their equipment and in other services, in support staff like dispatch, to be able to be successful in doing the work that they need to do, and that we're on the move to get those positions filled in place.
It certainly is, and one of the aspects when it comes to the ability to attract new recruits, or actually laterals, people who are already police officers who would consider coming over, is job satisfaction. And job satisfaction is, especially in the police world, comes through the ability and the opportunity to be able to have training, personal growth, which is one of our principles that we go by. But it's really what is that they're looking for, that we find with these applicants. They're looking for that ability to come to a place where they're going to be happy. We've seen a lot of agencies out there throwing incentives, financial incentives, and they're still not having luck. What people are looking for is a place where they can go and be happy. These funds are what are able to keep us training our officers, to keep us encouraging them to continue to strive toward continued education and personal growth. These are the things that have made a difference in the level of happiness within the department, which enables us to fill our vacancies, which essentially enables us to provide a better service. So absolutely, those funds make a difference.
More tangibly, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, those D20 funds allowed us to get competitive, no doubt about it. We were able to have safer response with new radios. We're able to buy cars that are more reliable. We have equipment and weapon systems that are safer for the public. And so it, without a doubt, we're able to consider and move forward with a refurbing of our police station. So it's a more quality place to work, a better environment, a more responsive environment. So without a doubt, D20 has shifted the trajectory significantly.
Great. Thank you both very much.
Councilmember Daris.
Thank you. Since Mayor Pro Tem Funk mentioned, excuse me, the ADUs, excuse me, the ADUs, I just wanted to thank Phil and his staff for everything that, I'm sorry, everything they've done with the stock plans. I have a client that utilized that system, that program, used the stock plans, and it went through as easy as advertised. So thank you for your hard work on that and the ease of getting that through. And I hope more residents of Atascadero utilize it as well, because it's definitely a cost savings for the consumer, for the homeowner. They don't have to have an architect spend the time to design the ADU. The plans are pretty quality, and you do give options for different roof lines. You know, there's a few options, which is good. But anyhow, it worked out really well. Thank you very much for all your hard work, and hope to see more. Good work. Thanks.
I only had one very minor question. I don't know that I even need to ask it, but thank you for this report. It's great to see, you know, all the progress being made, and staff is really doing an outstanding job. On page 35, something that I've, you know, asked for us to include, and this year my colleagues agreed to discuss it. We have explored the last item. We have explored options for a short-term rental ordinance by bringing a discussion item to the council, you know, specifying we didn't need an elaborate, you know, staff report, just that we could have a discussion. But it does, on this particular item, it does not show a status. So,
we wanted to keep you guessing. The community development director can share some thoughts with you, and we may need some clarification. Thank you, council member.
Well, the good thing is we're only halfway through the action plan. We have a whole other year. So you got to leave us something to do this following year. But what I can do is I'd
I
like
hope
to.
that doesn't mean you want to wait for another year.
No, absolutely not. We do have some statistics that we'd like to bring you on the number of vacation rentals that we're seeing, what's happening in the market, what's happening with our surrounding cities, what we're hearing from our neighborhoods, so that we can bring you that information so you can give us any further action needed from that. So we will have that to you shortly.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Director Banish. Ms. Christensen said that with the kind of looking at downtown and how the events were benefiting the community and the downtown businesses, we're changing that first Friday. And so is there any kind of things on the horizon that you're ready to share with us yet?
What we're doing is, thank you, Mayor Moreno and Council. We're looking at the first Friday's events that we had done and basically realigning them a little bit. So keeping some of those that were really successful, the launch to Tamale Festivals, the first Friday on May 3rd, and then the fall first Fridays, utilizing the plaza and really bringing more to Dia de Muertos, which is the November 1st, Day of the Dead promotion, which is going to be huge. We're going to roll that out a little larger. And then our first Friday, December 6th, really looking at Sunken Gardens and exploring a holiday lights that goes for a month-long period of time. So right now we're in the infancy of that, but that should be really an opportunity to generate traffic to the downtown and get folks coming downtown all month long. So it's exciting stuff that we have along with our regular First Friday programs, but really acknowledging that it does rain in California. So January, February, March is First Fridays, and even into April wasn't well attended. So taking our money and reinvesting that in some of our later fall First Friday programs and really blowing out our downtown lighting and our holiday lights.
Fantastic. I've been hearing from a lot of families lately and just kudos to you and your entire team. They love the events. They love the family friendly activities. And I think our residents are really enjoying and really happy with what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and open up to public comment on this item. And I do see a hand raised in the Zoom webinar. Before we get to Zoom, I want to find out if there's anyone here in the chambers that would like to speak on this item. I'm not seeing anyone, so let's go ahead and bring on our Zoom member. I see a Maddie Mahano. Maddie, you are muted. Maddie, you're still muted. If you're able to kind of see down in the left-hand corner, hopefully you see a little microphone there and you can press that and unmute. Do we have a way to invite Maddie to unmute? Maddie, if you're having a problem with that, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give you a phone number. If you're able to call that number while you're on, you could call in, and that phone number is 669-900-6833. And then write down this meeting ID because you're going to want to dial 889-2347-9018. So I'll give that all to you again as you're there, 669-900-6833. And a meeting ID is 889-2347-9018. And Luke, I don't know if there's any way to like unpromote and then try to bring back. Is there any tricks we have to try to get people unmuted? I'm ready to say gotta love technology, but yeah. That can be a risk. We having anyone call in? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment for now and bring that back. But Maddie, if you're able to unmute or call in, then I will reopen public comment while we're on this item. But know that any comments that you might have, any questions for any of you out there that just aren't able to call in at the moment, we are always open to your comments, your questions. We want to hear from you. And a great way to contact anyone in basically the city clerk is a great way to just say cityclerk@atascadero.org. And I believe the just council@atascadero.org and everything goes to the 5 of us. The city clerk, though, is a great way to get your kind of triage your question and get answers to you. So with that, go back to and let's see. I think we're just receive and file. There's not really a motion that we need on this, correct? Okay. So receive and file, and I see our speaker is gone there. All right, so we're on to item number 2, which is our fiscal year 2022-2023 audit. And I will turn this over to our Administrative Services Director, Ms. Jerry Rangel.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I'm very excited tonight to bring you the financial statements for 22-23, kind of the financial piece behind all that we just heard about in the last report. Wait a minute to come up here. All right, so the independent firm of Moss, Levy and Hartzheim was hired to perform our audit. Mr. Adam Geis, a partner with the firm, is available tonight for questions if you have any of those. And the audit was conducted in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the US and standards applicable to the financial audits contained in government auditing standards. The auditors issued a clean opinion, which basically means that the auditors agreed that the financial statements were presented fairly and in compliance with accounting principles. Tonight's focus will be on the general fund. The city was in a good position at the end of the year. Most key revenues were up and operating expenses came in as expected. The city has been accumulating funds over several years with a focus of using these funds on some major infrastructure projects, like we just heard about, downtown, for roads, for public facilities. Revenues primarily from freed up funds due to the American Rescue Act, or the ARPA, and Measure D20 funds have been collecting in the fund balance as we've prepared for these projects. Since we are now using some of these funds as planned, fiscal year 22-23, excluding Measure F14, shows a decrease in fund balance of about 3.9 million. This deficit is not operational in nature, as the city continues to be good stewards of the public funds and operate within our resources. The top revenue sources for fiscal year 22-23 came from property tax, sales tax, transient occupancy tax or TOT, the ARPA funding, and development revenue. Property tax revenue is the largest of the city's revenue sources and tends to be the most stable in times of economic flux. Secured property tax revenue grew about 7% over the prior year and totaled just over 12 million for the year. Sales tax revenue softened a little bit this year and were actually down slightly from the prior year. Some of the industry groups that make up the city's sales tax revenue saw large decreases from post-COVID recovery highs. The autos and transportation industry group was down about 15% from the prior year, along with business and industry at a decrease of almost 12%. Fuel and service station industry saw a slower but still positive growth of 6.6%. The city's sales tax revenue came in at about 11.3 million. Almost 6.4 of that was from Measure D20 and about 5 million from our base Bradley Burns revenues. TOT has been increasing in recent years due to the council's emphasis on economic development and of course help from the Atascadero Tourism Business Improvement District. Fiscal year 22-23 marks the second year in a row that the source has broken the $2 million mark. TOT was up about 5.3 over the prior year. Intergovernmental revenues include funding from the ARPA funds. As you may recall, this federal funding program provided additional financial relief in the wake of the COVID pandemic. Atascadero was qualified to take advantage of the standard allowance for revenue loss. So these funds were used for general government purposes, and they freed up other general government or general fund revenues for use in identified priorities such as the Downtown Infrastructure Enhancement Plan. Development-related revenues were up almost 600,000 when compared with the prior year. Development continues to be strong in the city, as we heard earlier. Many significant projects are in some stage of development, and completion of the general plan update will create even more economic development opportunities in the community. The city is a service organization, so the largest part of the general fund expenditures is dedicated to employee services. The city competes with other organizations for the best and brightest employees. One of the goals of Measure D20 was to add some much needed positions in public safety and to have marketable salaries to recruit and retain quality employees. Due to Measure D20, for the first time in a long time, city salaries are competitive and we have more people to help carry out the service that the community desires. Because of these changes, employee services actual costs for 22-23 were higher than the prior year, but a little bit lower than the adjusted budget due to some staffing vacancies that remain. When compared with the prior year, 22-23 operating supplies and services were higher by about 477,000. Actual results for 22-23 were pretty close to target though. Sales tax Measure D20 is providing additional resources to allow more adequate funding for necessary operating supplies and services to the public, with a focus on council's priorities. Our operating costs are now more on par with our neighbors, and productivity is going up and things are getting done, as we heard earlier. Thanks to Measure D20, we are better able to modernize operations and prepare for the future. Special and capital purchases vary from year to year. The final budget for the special and capital in fiscal year 22-23 included a number of ongoing projects, including the general plan update, the broadband enhancement project, computer-aided dispatch records management system, CAD RMS, and the fire station #1 replacement, radio repeater upgrades, some transfers to other city funds for future replacement of vehicles, equipment, and infrastructure, all that investment that we've been talking about. We've been focused on the general fund excluding Measure F14 up to this point, but I did want to touch briefly on F14 specifically. Measure of 14 revenue was about 3.2 million, with the expenditures coming in at about 3.4. The balance in the F14 column are funds that are being used on current and planned projects. Total general fund ending balance, including both F14 and Measure D20 funds, as reported in the financial statements, was 21.2 million. Again, excluding Measure F14 activity, general fund revenues were just over 17 million. This graph demonstrates our earlier discussion on accumulated fund balance. The general fund reserves increase as we've been saving for major infrastructure projects, and then of course decreases as we use these savings for these planned priority projects. As we work to complete these city priorities, we may continue to see similar results in future fiscal years. The city is a member of the California Public Employees Retirement System, or CalPERS, and offers retirement benefits to its employees. The city's CalPERS retirement plans are grouped with other similar agencies into pools. The city's net pension liability is affected not only by city-specific factors, but also by the activity of the pool. At the end of the year, the city's net pension liability was about 35 million. This was increased during the year by about 16 million, but it's mainly because of the poor investment return from CalPERS for the year ending 6/30/2022. Their asset return at that time was a negative 7.5% when they expected a positive 7.15. Also, the discount rate was lowered at that recently, 25 basis points, increasing the liability even further. CalPERS investment return for 22-23 was 5.8%. The city is dedicated to a solid financial plan using our resources wisely. With the help of Measure D20 and some other resources, we have been better able to focus on council priorities, as we heard earlier this evening. We are financially healthy, but not wealthy. That concludes staff's report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Adam Geis is also available for questions as well.
Thank you very much, Director. And just to show any of you that would like, we do have this financial statement audit, and I'm assuming that this will be on the website as soon as this gets, assuming this is received and accepted tonight.
Correct, and it is also on the website in the agenda package.
Wonderful. So this is something that is, we're looking at the year end of June 30th, 2023. So kind of looking at what happened and accessible for anyone who would like. So what I want to do is I want to see if our council has any questions, and I'm going to assume that Councilmember Bourbeau does.
Well, actually, Mayor, you will be pleased to know that I spent 45 minutes this afternoon going over with Jerry Rangel, and she answered all my questions.
Very pleased.
So you may thank her that
She
I do
answered all
not
of
have
mine
any
too, and
further
I thank her
questions
very
this
much.
evening.
Yes. Thank you, Director Rangel. Councilmember Darrows, any nothing? You? Okay, we've got one here.
I have two brief questions, just for the purposes of clarifying things for the members of the public as they may have been going through. If you could go back first to the services and back a few slides to looking at the actual versus there we go, general fund expenditure slide. Just to note, you talk about a positive versus negative variance with the budget. And I just wanted to make sure that we're clear that the variance we're showing here is that we came out better than budget, as opposed, so we spent less than was budgeted, but that's a positive number, so it's a good thing, right?
That is correct. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, and then the other one is on the, if you went to the F14 slide, you mentioned that those funds, we have a balance of about 4 million in that fund, and that's a timing sort of thing. Am I correct in understanding that these are statements for the end of the city's fiscal year at the end of June, which is in the middle of the construction season? So we probably spent most of that money on the work that everybody's seen around town. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And then more continues to come in, so we can do more projects. Looking good. All right. I'm going to see if we have any questions from the public and if our auditor would like to come forward, if there's anything that you would like to add or say, we'd love to hear from you. Not seeing anyone on Zoom, so welcome.
Hi, my name is Adam Geis, and I was the taller than this. And I was the partner in charge of the audit for this last fiscal year. Jerry kind of went over a lot of the main changes in the general fund, and then the main change in the liabilities that you see with that net pension liability. And I did want to point out, as she already stated, when you're looking at the net pension liability, you're looking at calculations based off of a 1-year lag time. So the return on investments that is being used in the calculations reported in these numbers was based off of CalPERS year and CalPERS investments as of June 30, 2022, when the market was not doing very well. And then, as Jerry had stated, their return on investments was a positive number instead of a negative number in the 22-23 fiscal year. So you will see another swing in the opposite direction on next year's financial statements. So the pension liability, when GASB looked at it and they decided to add it to the financial statements, it was because they're trying to quantify future costs and trying to reflect what those might be. But it is important to point out that that is a moving target, depending on a lot of factors, but in particular, depending on how CalPERS investments are doing from year to year. So that pension liability, if you're looking at what was actually spent by the city during the fiscal year, if you look at page 105, it has the actual payments paid to CalPERS over the last 9 years, and you can kind of see the history of the actual cash payments. So I just wanted to point out that a little bit of, exaggerate on what she had said about the change in the pension liability and kind of what that's resulting from, and then how it actually looks in terms of the actual cash out costs on a year-to-year basis. Other than that, I want to say that we were able to get into the city's books and go through the internal controls, go through the city's books over a few weeks, and that we have no findings to report right now. The letter was included in the report. There was a finding dealing with cash receipts from the prior year, just making sure that fees get updated as fees change from year to year. And from our testing this year, we saw that that finding was implemented. We didn't have any repeated issues with that. And so I just wanted to thank staff for all their organization and getting us everything that we asked for, which is a ton of papers and binders and reports in an organized fashion so that we can efficiently go through the audit. And I guess I'll bring it back out to you guys if you guys have any questions directly for me.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you mentioned that. If you didn't, I was going to. So nice about the recommendations and question cost, and everything got corrected from last year. And so it looks like you have an A+, not surprising, you and your team. It's a lot of work to go through an audit. I used to be I've been on both ends of it. So I know what it's like, obviously for you and your firm, but I know what it's like to be on the end of answering all those questions and doing the work. And it's a lot. You all do a tremendous job. So thank you to your entire department. Thank you, Mr. Geis. Any questions of Mr. Geis?
No, but I was going to add to his comment. I mean, when you see the increase in net pension liability, the number is scary. But as you noted, there was a significant swing downward last year based on the 3 years ago positive return by CalPERS. So it swings back and forth. The thing I think that is a little concerning more for the long run is that if you look on page 105 that you mentioned, the amount we're paying for pension costs has more than doubled since 2015. And so while the net pension liability will swing wildly one way or another, given the changes in CalPERS returns, hopefully, can get close to their now 6.9 target over the long term. But there has been an increasing trend in that, in the annual pension costs, and we just have to pay the piper, unfortunately. But it does, the more we pay in pension costs, it does detract from our ability to pay our employees more, or to hire more employees. So it is the net liability number is not in and of itself the larger concern. It's really more the increasing cost, and those increases have slowed down in the last few years, and hopefully that will become a more common occurrence.
I'm wondering, do you have any sense if maybe it's a crystal ball, but is that 6.9%? Do we have a sense that that might be fairly steady? It was the director and I were talking about that, and CalPERS kind of seems to look at that every few years. Do you have a better crystal ball than we do? And could that be going down again?
It's definitely a possibility. They made the change because they were not getting the expected return on investment that they were putting into their calculations. The last couple of years, there's been so much up and down. I don't know what what they're going to decide out of that. But it is something that they are constantly looking at on a year-to-year basis. And if they feel like things are getting too much out of whack with what their expectations are, they are open to reevaluating it. And as you can see, when the discount rate or expected return on investments that's kind of based off of decreases, that causes your pension liability to increase. So that is, something significant to pay attention to. But I don't really have any knowledge of where it's going at the moment.
Mayor, actually, CalPERS adopted potentially a 6.5% discount rate target, but as they were at 7, they only lower it when they have a really good investment year return, like they did the other year of 21%. So when they have a really good, return year, that's when they drop the discount rate, because they feel like the effect will be kind of
Less significant.
hidden in there a little bit. It won't be as drastic. Unfortunately, they lowered the discount rate and then had a bad year of return. So it kind of compounded the swing in the net pension liability. But ultimately, under their current policy, I believe their ultimate target is 6.5.
Yeah, I just don't know how long they're looking
Well,
to
I
take
think
to
it
get
could,
there. Is it going to be dependent upon these higher
Yes.
years? And
it is. It's
Yeah.
going to be dependent on that. So it could be many years before they get there.
All right, not seeing any other questions, Mr. Geis. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, with that, I will bring it back to council for a motion.
I'll move we accept the financial audit for the period ended June 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Council Member Borbeau and a second by Council Member Newsom. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borbeau,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Councilmember Daris,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Funk,
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to council announcements and committee reports. This is the portion of our meeting that council members might, on their own initiative, talk about very briefly something they've been involved in with the community, or give a report on any committees on which they sit and want to update the council and the public. So I will just go from my left to my right and start with Councilmember Daris.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, Thursday, Capslow met, mostly routine stuff, but they are trying to purchase a piece of property that I think the price is a bit high. There's also contamination. There's all kinds of issues. So they're working that out. It would be good for some expansion of their facility, one of their facilities. I don't think I'm necessarily at liberty to give too much detail, but they're still working on that. It's one of the biggest things the last several months. For that, tomorrow, APCD meets at 9 a.m. and that's all I have.
Councilmember Borbeau.
Thank you. Yeah, the IWMA did meet last week. Yeah. Or the week before. Nothing of particular note to report there. I had two other things. This morning, I participated in the point in time homeless count and ended up out along 3 bridges and out in that direction, and then some other areas south of or around the post office. Interviewing people, and so that was an interesting experience. It's very informative to some homeless individuals, and you find on a couple of exceptions, but most are all, were born and raised here. and have strong, ties to the community. But it was interesting. I don't know how the other teams did. Some of them must have had a lot more because they were put toward areas that our police department has identified through a heat map as common areas where they would be more likely to find more homeless individuals. So I think they probably counted a lot more than the team I was on did, but it was a good experience to have. Also on February 10th, the group Earthshine will be doing another creek cleanup here, and that's going to be from 10 to 12 in the morning on Saturday, February 10th. And I know Mayor Moreno and Mayor Pro Tem Funk have participated in those in the past as well as I have. And so just want to make sure let you all know that and the public know that, because that's before our next council meeting, I believe.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things. First, at the Design Review Committee that Councilmember Dares and I participated in, we gave approval for the design for a project that people will find very visible because it's in the empty lot next to Brew Coffee House, where you see that lovely mural with the ducks on it. And this is a mixed-use project that has a space suitable for restaurant use out front and a design that deliberately echoes the structure that used to be in that space historically and burned down quite some time ago. So that is something people will see moving forward as the state has created new incentives for projects that meet certain requirements and include a certain element of housing and include some affordability in the housing. It means that these projects go through without having to go to the planning commission or come to this body. So their next step is to go get building permits on this project, and people will notice that. But folks should know that this is part of an effort to really streamline things, to let work get done more quickly. And we'll add housing units downtown and commercial space downtown. And then other thing, the Homeless Services Oversight Council met last week. And in addition to the point in time count that Councilmember Bourbeau talked about, we approved some grants and talked about additional grant funding that's going to come through HAP 3 and HAP 4. Don't ask me for the acronyms. But it's the tranches of state money to build a capacity in homeless services. And I should alert my colleagues that there's a 3-year term limit on chair of HSOC. So I have been chair for 3 years now, and I handed over the reins of HSOC to San Luis Obispo City Council member Michelle Shorsman, and I stepped back to be vice chair.
Councilmember Mason.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. At SLOCOG, San Luis Obispo Council of Governments and Regional Transit Authority, recently, nothing of significance to report except to confirm that we indeed did give the other $800,000 for from the Community Betterments Grant for our downtown infrastructure enhancement project. So very exciting. So that is a total of 1.55 million coming from SLOCOG. I had a county mayor's roundtable last Friday. Nothing of significance to report. I have a city selection committee meeting this Friday where we will be appointing Mr. Lewis here to the oversight committee. So that will be done.
I was looking forward to making campaign buttons and was disappointed to see I was the only candidate.
The only candidate.
Thanks for your support, Mayor.
Far and ahead, the only candidate. Yes. And then I was asked by one of the librarian at the high school to come speak to the high schoolers on overcoming obstacles to achieve your New Year's goals. So I did that last Wednesday and thoroughly enjoyed that and appreciated the opportunity. With that, I will see if there are any individual determinations or actions. There are none on the agenda, but okay, we have none. So I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting to the meeting of the successor agency, and I will call to order that meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bourbeau.
Here.
Councilmember Dares.
Here.
Councilmember Newsom.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Funk.
Here.
Mayor Moreno.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Also move.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Borbo, second by Mayor Pro Tem Funk. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Daris,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Funk,
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We're on to our consent calendar, which contains just the draft minutes of the agency from January 4th of 2024. Any member of the council or the public wishing to pull an item? Seeing none, can I get a motion, please?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Borbo, second by Mayor Pro Tem Funk. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Daris,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Funk,
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to community forum. This is reserved for persons wanting to address the board on any matter not on the agenda, but over which the board has jurisdiction. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and we've got the timer on if need be. Any members wishing to speak, members of the public? Seeing none, I will go ahead and close community forum, and we'll move on to our one management report, which is an issuance of refunding bonds to refund certain outstanding obligations of the former Atascadero Community Redevelopment Agency. And before I turn this over to Director Rangel, I'd actually like to have our city manager, Mr. Lewis, give us a little bit of history here, because you were around at the time when we issued these bonds, and a lot of exciting things happened, and it's nice to acknowledge that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, it is important. I think some people can question government borrowing and government debt and why do we borrow? And I think I look back to Atascadero in 2003, where we were. The Carlton was under construction, kind of. It was still not operational. You could not stroll through the sunken gardens. There were no pathways through it. There was no water or power, so you couldn't have events there. The sidewalks were cracked, had roots, had issues. We didn't have pavers or beautiful urns. You couldn't get through to the other side of Capistrano because there was no Lewis Avenue Bridge. So you got stuck at the junior high school and had to work your way around. You couldn't walk across the creek to what at the time was an underutilized center. It was just a number of things like that. We a very different Atascadero. And so in borrowing the first of the bonds you're looking at, it was our goal to transform the downtown center, to make it more vibrant, more walkable, to have the festivals, to have circulation. So we one day could have a renovated theater that we have today. So just really, really neat, the first bond from 04. And the second one in 10 really was the big chunk of money that completed this building and made it nice, and made it the tourism attraction it is. You know, the FEMA money went a long way, but that was kind of building it back to kind of what it was. And so the council had the foresight to say, no, we want this building to be premier. And so here we are. So this is just a terrific use of debt. Now, as I share that borrowing is a good thing for government when used the right way, and I hope I painted a picture that this has been just transformative for our community, it's also good to be smart in how you manage debt. It's very important, and I applaud the council for being open to this refinancing. You'll hear in a bit, just high level, this debt does a number of things. First of all, it shows that your benevolence and investment in others, because from this debt, other agencies like our school system and the county and the cemetery district will receive larger portions of money than the city itself. So there's a nice act there. The city nonetheless will save $1 million over 16 years. You'll see that in just a minute, which is nothing to shake a stick at. I think it will remind the community these were AAA. One of these was a AAA rated issuance. So it's nice to see that we're perfect score on our valuation and our borrowing. This will allow us to move forward in your commitment to do the public safety center. The fire station is collateral for one of these, and banks don't take kindly to tearing down buildings that are collateralized. So taking that out and clearing the deck of our collateralized, so flipping our monopoly cards back over is a real positive thing. And so there's just a lot of good here, and that's what the dollars were used for. So I want to thank Mr. Engel and her team, Cindy. Just as a lot of work. And we also have a high-performing team that you're going to meet here in just a minute. So thank you for being open to this. This is a tremendous thing to do for the community. And Director Engel, thanks for all your work on this. I'll turn it to you to introduce the team and make your comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. I am very excited. We have just a top-notch bond team working with us, going through it. Just professional, knowledgeable, high quality taken a lot of the burden off of myself and my staff too during this process, and I really appreciate that from the team. This is the first step of many that we will go through to get this bond done. After tonight, it will go to the oversight site or countywide oversight board next week for approval, which hopefully Mr. Lewis will be on the board by then and review that. And they'll go over a calendar as well. I would like to introduce tonight, we have three of our amazing bond team members with us from Urban Futures, Inc. We have Wing C. Fox. From Piper Sandler and Company, we have Ralph Holmes. And from Jones Hall, we have David Fama. I will go ahead and pull up the presentation and let you go forward.
Sorry, we just had a water spill, so.
I was wondering what we did.
No, the mayor is very interested. We just had a water spill up here.
Charles
Near the
distracted
laptop.
me, you know, what am I, yeah, near the laptop. Oh, I'm just gonna blame it on Charles, just.
And blame it on me because I was asking what happened to her picture on the screen, Luke. We only have the four of us.
That's all right. Team effort. We're cleaned up over here.
All right, shall we go? Thank you very much. My name is Ralph Holmes. I'm Piper Sandler, with the bond underwriter on the transaction. Standing next to me is Wincy Fox.
Excuse me, can you get a little closer to the microphone?
Yeah.
I try not to be too loud, but I guess I'm doing the opposite. My name is Ralph Holmes with Piper Sandler. I'm the bond underwriter. Wincy Fox with Urban Futures is the municipal advisor for the city. And then Dave Farmers sitting over there is bond and disclosure counsel on the transaction. He's with the firm Jones Hall. So those are listed here on this slide. Next slide, please. I can't see the slides at all. I'll go for it. The reason we're here is to discuss the refunding of the former redevelopment agency debt. The former redevelopment agency issued debt, as Jim said, in 2004 and 2010. Actually, the 2010 bonds were issued by the city with a pledge of redevelopment dollars that backstopped it. And so it's effectively redevelopment agency debt. As many of you know, in 2012, the state abolished redevelopment across the state. And since that point in time, you've been in the process of dismantling the redevelopment agency, which means paying down its obligations. The refunding of the 2004 and 2010 bonds will save roughly $5.4 million. So that's moving money, as I said earlier today, from Wall Street to Main Street. Money that would go to investors would instead stay within this community. As Mr. Lewis commented, most of the savings actually go to other public agencies. The city of Atascadero gets roughly $1 million of it, and the remaining roughly $4 million goes to the other public agencies. And then one of the advantages of moving forward and doing this is, again, releasing the assets that were pledged to the 2010 bonds, which will allow you to do other projects. Next slide, please. So just high level, you formed the redevelopment agency in 1999, and you did it to fund the things that Mr. Lewis discussed. And since that point in time, obviously it was dissolved. We've been in dissolution. Nonetheless, assessed values within the project area have continued to grow. They're up since 2012 by about $300 million. Next slide, please. So this just summarizes the two issuances, the 2004 and the 2012 bonds. As you can see, in aggregate, there's level debt service on those bonds. There's roughly $7 million of 2004 bonds outstanding and roughly $14.5 million of 2010 bonds outstanding, with interest rates that range from 4% to about 5%. I'm going to go ahead and One more thing, actually. I just would love to point out that you did get upgraded to AAA on the redevelopment bonds a couple of years ago by Fitch. So that was a great accomplishment for this. Why don't I go ahead and turn this presentation over to Wing C and she can finish it.
Thank you, Ralph. Good evening, board chair and members of the successor agency board. It's certainly a pleasure to be serving the successor agency on this refinancing. And if we move to the next slide, I'm going to re-emphasize the excitement about this refinancing. As Ralph mentioned, it really directs some of the funds that are currently being paid to bondholders back into the community. And what do we mean by the community? Here we have broken down the affected taxing agencies that will receive a portion of the savings. As Ralph mentioned earlier, we expect preliminarily that total gross savings through 2040, which is the final maturity of the bonds that we're refunding, will total over 5.49 million, of which the city will be allocated almost 1.1 million and the rest to the other entities that are listed on this slide. So it is a huge benefit that is shared by many, many local government agencies in this area. So tonight's action is to adopt the resolution before you. Adopting the resolution essentially authorizes the issuance of the bonds, approves engagement of the financing team consultants, and also approves the final form of financing documents, the trust indenture, the escrow agreement, and the bond purchase agreement, which I'm sure you all read very thoroughly, page by page. If you have any questions, we are certainly happy to address them along with Dave Fama, Bond and Disclosure Counsel. So this type of refinancing does take longer, takes more of a lead time because it does require 2 other approvals besides the successor agency approval. So tonight, successor agency is taking action. If the item is approved, we will meet with the county oversight board on Monday to also approve the refunding. And then the documents are sent to DOF, Department of Finance, at the state. And then that starts a 60-day review period that DOF has to go through everything, ask any questions. As Ralph mentioned, this is a little bit more of a unique refinancing with those 2010s because they were issued by the city, but supported by a reimbursement agreement. So we do anticipate that DOF will ask questions and we're here to answer them. We will be proactive with reaching out to DOF, and we do anticipate that they won't take the entire 60-day window. So we, although allow for the 60-day window and track that, we do anticipate that it will happen sooner. So we're ready to have everything in place sooner than that 60-day window. Another key component is the credit rating presentation. As Ralph mentioned, AAA from Fitch was upgraded the bonds recently. We also believe that S&P will upgrade the bonds when we go through this process. I did have an opportunity, City Manager Lewis took us around a little bit, and we had an opportunity to see all the amazing projects that have occurred in the city, really fantastic. And we'll definitely want to review that for the rating agency analysts as well. We will come back to the successor agency. One key piece of a financing and selling bonds is the marketing document, which is the official statement. And so we will come back with that document, which will include a lot of the credit information, allowing bondholders to assess whether they want to purchase the bonds. And then after that, the POS will be distributed. Then Ralph and his team will sell the bonds on pricing day, which is a very exciting process as well. And then we anticipate closing about 2 weeks after that on April 11th. And with that, we can answer any questions.
See, you get as excited about bond closing day as our public works director does about CPI and pavement management, things like that. I love it when somebody is in the right career, the right job, they love what they're doing. So kudos. All right. And I want to, I think I speak for all of us, just thank you to staff for having the forethought to do something like this, to be saving agencies countywide, including the city money, freeing up that the indebtedness on our infrastructure like the fire station. So just thank you. You guys are on it. So I will look to staff, our council members, so we've got, or not board members, not council members, we're on the board. Council member Borbo, board member Borbo.
Thank you, Mayor. And as you probably expected, I did at least peruse every page of the bond documents.
I'm certain. You'll be
Um,
there on bond day, I'm sure, bond
yeah,
closing day.
Well, that's
He
interesting.
probably
You know,
wants
that's
to go with
interesting.
you.
I've sat through one of those before, and you wait for that phone call from New York and see how your bonds got priced. I had some questions for you, though. If you could go back, well, let's stay on this slide real quick, answer the question. You indicated, if I understood you correctly, the 60-day review frequently doesn't take 60 days, and that's why you're pricing the bonds, before those 60 days are up, or that's why you're hoping to price the bonds.
Correct. We want everything ready so that we can go into the market as soon as we receive that letter.
Got it. And a question on the market, we're extremely proud of the great work our staff has done, and that to get that upgrade to AAA by Fitch and hopefully S&P. I think it's, it really speaks to the good financial management over the last, 10, 15 years it's occurred in this city. I'm wondering if you have any, just like a ballpark idea of how much a AAA rating is worth in terms of lower interest rates compared to, a AA or a AA plus.
I would say the difference.
Move that microphone up for
I'm
us.
sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd say the difference between a AA and a AAA is probably something in the neighborhood of 10 basis points. It's pretty compressed when you get the high.
Got it. But over the,
rates. But it's money.
Yeah, over the length, you're talking tens of thousands,
It's still
if not a
taxpayer
couple
dollars.
$100,000. Okay, if you could go back to slide 3, I think it is. Well, that one could work, but slide 3, I think. And you mentioned this multiple times, gross savings of almost 5.5 million. But then you talk about the net present value savings is $2 million. And if I understand correctly from the staff report, that's really because a chunk of that 5 million is taking the reserve we have set aside for the next 6 months payments or whatever and applying that.
Yes. So the existing bonds have a reserve fund, a debt service reserve fund. We would go out and get a surety to replace that, which means you'd be issuing less debt. And so some of the savings comes from that. The other thing is when you do net present value savings, you actually discount.
Sure. Over the future years, understand. I just want to make sure, because I think this is a great idea and I really applaud staff pursuing it, but I don't want to overstate the net savings in the sense that because part of that future payment savings is using the reserve fund we already have set aside. It is somewhat reduced, if you will. And there is a $600,000 essentially, like if I was refinancing my mortgage, you could say the $597,000 is effectively closing costs, right? In here, it says cost of issuance, $597,000.
Yes, that's right. It's the cost that goes into it.
Got it. Okay. And then, we're in an environment where, rates were low for a long time. They went up. And last year, they're starting to come down and they're widely expected to drop further. And in the report, you say the overall average effective interest rate here is expected to be like 3.6%. If rates dropped, let's say the Fed dropped rates between now and the issuance of these, and let's say rates went down 0.25%, how much, we could expect some further savings, right? If that were to be the case.
You could, yes.
Okay.
And we will not know what the rate is until we price the bonds. But obviously your staff would not want to proceed unless the savings were significant.
Yeah. Okay. Let me check. I think that's my question. Yes. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, you said?
Yes, and thank you very much for your work with our staff and the staff in doing this. One question, and just carrying on the analogy about a home mortgage. As we see this, a typical approach in a home mortgage is to refinance the mortgage after you've, say, paid 10 years on your 30-year mortgage. You refinance it and you get another 30-year mortgage and the payment goes down because you just extended out the life of the loan. My understanding is that we are not extending the life of the loan. We're keeping it the same terms. So this really is real savings and not just pushing money out to later. Is that true?
Absolutely. That is exactly correct. And in fact, by law, we cannot extend the final maturity here. We have to match the final maturity of the bonds that are being refunded.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The only question I have is when it goes to the DOF, Are there any concerns? You seem to think it'll be a shortened process, and so we tend to think it should go smoothly, but do you see any potential hiccups?
We will be proactive with DOF. They've seen a lot of these. They know what this is. There's a little bit of more to explain with the 2010 lease revenue bonds, but we have a team that's worked with DOF for many, many years. And we're able to reach out and be proactive with the answering the questions and make sure that they get through their process and their questions quicker than the 60-day review period.
These are also those kind of times when we're glad we have Gonzalez on our team to get us to the right person, to get this attention and to make sure they're being heard. Just, it's
Sure.
always good to have that assistance.
I would think also, Mayor, that, I mean, when they did away with redevelopment, part of the, logic from the governor at the time was to lessen the impact on some of these other agencies that, were losing property tax. This measure, saves or is going to increase property tax revenue to those other entities.
Oh,
So
yeah, no, I
DOF
would
should
have-
be very, very pleased.
I would assume they would be. I just
Yeah.
didn't know if there was something that we didn't know. So,
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. I think we've answered questions. So now I'm going to go out to the public. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this? I'm not seeing any, nobody in the Zoom room, no phone callers. So we'll go ahead and close public comment and we'll bring that back to the board and I will ask for a motion.
And perhaps staff could enlighten us as to the exact form of the motion that's needed.
Move staff
that-
recommendation.
Okay. Well, if that works, I will move staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Funk, a second by Councilmember Daras. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Daris,
Yes.
Councilmember Borbo,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Funk,
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Are there any board announcements or reports? I should hope not. What have we been doing out there? All right, meeting adjourned.